So welcome to the Leaving the Police webinar. This is our first one about job hunting, and I'm joined today by the Leaving the Police co-founder, Rob Hoblin. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, nice to be indoors in this wintry sort of weather that we've got.
Definitely.
So what we're going to do then is we're going to cover a number of subjects, and first of all, we're just going to tell you a little bit about ourselves. So I used to be in the police. I'm there on the left, Mark Corder. I did 18 years in the police, and I left in 2012. I volunteered to leave, and since then I've done a number of things, some short-term contracts and projects, but the main thing I do now is leadership and management training, and I've got my own business, as you can see there, and it's not massively different to what Rob does, but I'll let Rob introduce himself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rob Hoblin. I used to be in the police for nearly 30 years and operational background. Throughout my career, I've been a trainer and very similar to Mark, done leadership and management training since leaving the police in 2014. So about just over 4 years now, having left the police and starting this new initiative with Mark called Leaving the Police and see where it takes us.
Okay, thanks, Rob. So we'll have a look and see what we're going to cover in today's webinar. We're going to have a look at identifying the right sort of work for you. So the key thing is that you leave what's been potentially a lengthy career, and you end up doing something that you want to do as maybe the final stepping stone in your career. It may not be the final one, but you probably hope at this time that you're going to find something that's going to keep you going for a while. We also want to talk about where you're going to look for these suitable roles, the importance of doing your research and how you might be able to do that. The key thing as well is what you're really worth, because a lot of people come out of the police and they think, well, I haven't got the skills experience for certain jobs, and they end up looking at jobs that pay a lot less than what perhaps they think they should, but they think that's all they can get really. And finally, any other considerations that we want to help you with.
Yeah, and I think for me, Mark, the other considerations, and having done a few interviews with ex-police colleagues in the last few weeks, one thing that is coming out loud and clear is this thing about having some self-belief and being able to take that forward. So it'll be interesting to see how we take that forward in terms of skill sets that we've all gained over the years and how we transfer those across.
Absolutely. There's so much that we've done in our careers and we take things for granted, I think, and hopefully we can cover that as we go through. So we'll just move on to the next page. So how do we identify what the right sort of work for you is? The thing is, whatever you think about what you did in the police, and some days were good and some days weren't so good, you're in a position now, a unique position that you haven't been in for a long time, because you get to decide what to do for the rest of your life. You've actually got a choice. We don't always have career choices in the police. Sometimes we can make our own sort of way in life, but sometimes things get decided for us. But now is a chance to get it right.
For me, Mark, that's one of the crucial things. It's about having that choice to take the skills that you've got and move them in perhaps a new direction. I mean, some ex-cops will stay within policing and get a civilian job within policing, which is fine. But others want to find something absolutely new, take those skill sets, transfer them across and do something totally different.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important that you make your choice with care, because as you can see, two people in the same situation or ostensibly in the same situation, but have got a very different outlook on life. So it's important that you make that choice with care, and that doesn't happen by finishing in the police on Friday and then deciding what you're going to do with your life on the Monday. There's some thought and planning required for this.
It's an interesting slide, this, Mark. The picture reminds me of a book by Jim Collins, and he talks about being on the right bus, on the right journey. And you can be on the right bus and on the right journey, but perhaps in the wrong seat. So looking at these two, one of them's obviously in the wrong seat, so perhaps not the window seat looking at the lovely view.
That's a good analogy, Rob. I'm familiar with that book, yeah, and you've mentioned that before. So yeah, absolutely. You can be very much in a similar place with somebody else, but it just depends on your outlook and your position, obviously. So yeah, no, I like that. So identifying the right sort of work for you then, things to consider maybe. What do you enjoy doing? Because if you don't enjoy what you're doing, how long are you going to be sort of happy to carry on doing that? How about you, Rob? Have you enjoyed everything you've been doing since you left the police?
You know, it's interesting this one, Mark, because I look back over a 30-year career, and I will always go back to around about 1990, 1993. Those 3 years is when I actually started doing police training, and best probably 3 years of my career, no matter what ranks I reached and all the rest of it. But that's funny now that I've left 3 years, 4 years now, and guess what I love doing? It's training, and that's what I do. So there is that thing about niche, and everybody has their own niche, irrespective of what that niche might be. But it's actually really good point about, and I really love doing the training piece as well.
Yeah, and that's what you've excelled at since. So probably the phrase we often use between us is stick to the knitting. You know, do what you're good at, what you know, what you enjoy. And that takes me on to the next point, really. What am I good at doing? If you think there's something you want to do, but you've never done it or haven't got a clue how to do it, it's going to be a steep learning curve. So maybe consider things that you're good at. What skills do you already have? What things do you already sort of know you can do, which may help? For me,
we've all had assessments. We've all been through different internal interviews in policing, and so we know what we're good at. And sometimes we just don't have that self-belief to take those good things that we can do out into the outside world.
Yeah, and it's a different world, isn't it? It's a world of unfamiliarity compared to what we've been doing for probably quite a few years. So it is knowing what's out there and bringing along with you the skills and things that you've got experience and knowledge of. That's always a good place to start. But if you aren't particularly experienced about something that you really fancy and you think that you would like to do it, the next question to ask yourself is, what do I need to learn? Do you have to do some more development to tick some boxes that may just be required? And we'll come on to some self-development stuff in a minute, but there's quite a lot you can do in terms of self-development. And I know, Rob, that you have probably carried on developing since you left the police, as have I.
Yeah. I was saying, like, depending where your timeline is as well. If you, for instance, know that you're coming up to a natural retirement at the 30-year mark, well, sometimes the pre-planning bit is about, well, what other skills might I be able to gain while still in policing, or courses I may be able to attain, and actually do that before you leave. So there is that, and I know we're going to talk about planning later on, but that planning bit is pretty crucial, either before you leave or once you've left in those first 6 months, about getting some particular skill sets aligned with certification, probably the right phrase to use.
Absolutely. Anyone that's got early knowledge of them leaving, I would be using all that time available to think, what do I need to do? And are there any courses, any qualifications I can get under my belt? And the thing is, you're doing it, and I know it's on a slide later, but you're doing it while you're getting paid. You know, you're not leaving and then making all your decisions, which is a bigger risk, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. Absolutely.
So identifying the right sort of work for you then. Imagine that this green box here is the whole, is everything basically. And you've got two circles here that overlap. On the left-hand side, we've got things that I enjoy. So you could basically get this picture and write a list of the things that you enjoy doing in that gap there. On the right-hand side, you could write a list of things that you're good at. So they don't overlap at the moment. So things that you enjoy and things that you're good at could be two different things. And where there's an overlap, things that you enjoy and things that you're good at, they overlap. Now that's a great place to be. If you can find work that fits into that sort of overlap space there, then you've probably ticked two important boxes there. And on the outside, things I'm not good at and don't enjoy. So this is the sort of image that you can use, if you like, to sort of plan particular skills and ideas and potential jobs, and start writing them down in the different areas and see what overlaps as a good starting point.
I was going to say, I really do like this visual, because I'm a visual person anyway. But adding on to that is you might want to do this, but there's nothing wrong with doing this with some perhaps trusted colleagues, maybe family, friends, maybe even other husband, wife, partner, something like that. And so to get a really good feeling about what are you really good at and what do you really enjoy. So maybe taking it a little bit away from self and actually ask some people that you trust. that can really help you to make those decisions about which part of those two circles do I put this in.
No, I think that's good, and I think the word to use here is to be challenged. So sometimes we can kid ourselves on that we're actually good at something, or that we enjoy something, and then there'll be somebody close to us who can say to remind us that you don't really enjoy that. You moan every time you do it. So
Yeah.
to hear that maybe could be quite a useful thing to get some challenges to what we think, because we can slip into our own comfort zone and think, well, we know what we're happy with and we know what we enjoy, what we're good at. But it's just as important to hear what other people whose opinion you value, well, what they think. If you consider on the screen there, if you do a job and you don't enjoy it, how long do you think it will last? Because if you've got a pension and if you've spent a lot of time in the police, that's in your mind is probably that's your like main career, and we want to try and get you away from that thinking at some point. But you're more likely to wrap in a job that you've only just started if you don't like it. So it's important to consider, do something that you're going to enjoy. On the second point there, if you chase, go on, Rob. Yeah.
Mark, can I just add to that first point there? I mean, just that conversation we had with a recruiter yesterday who mentioned the point about, if you go in there with a mindset, well, this is just a temporary fix till I find something that I really want, then the likelihood is the recruiter will spot that as well. The job interviewer will spot that. So you've got to go in there with the right mindset that I will enjoy this and actually I do want the longevity to doing this particular job role.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. That conversation we had yesterday. If you don't come across that this is the real job for you, and you harp on too much about what you used to do, and your time in the police, it'll show through. The interviewer will be able to see that you're just treating this as a second job to permanent retirement, and they will find someone else. So it's really important that you go in enthusiastically, pick something you enjoy, and that you're willing to stick at, because people, experienced interviewers can tell when that's not the case.
Absolutely.
The next point there, then, if you chase jobs where you have a few skills or experience, how likely are you to be successful? So let's say, for example, that you've probably over-egged a few things in terms of your CV and maybe in the interview, and you've landed a job, and really deep down you think, well, I'm not really as potentially good or experienced or skilled at this as what I've made out. It could be a struggle for yourself, and if you get found out, that's not going to be nice for you or anyone else. So it's important that you align yourself with the skills and experience that you really have.
Just a hint of advice there, Mark, from me personally, where this can work in an opposite way is people see your CV and they might see the word, for instance, security on there. The next thing they're sending you lots of jobs with IT, because obviously IT's got very much security oriented now. And then you think, oh, I could do this job, but actually, no, you can't. Because if you've not been involved in IT security during your police career, the likelihood is that fits this middle paragraph here. You'll be chasing a job where you've got few skills, few experience, and are you likely to be successful? Probably not. So you might be wasting your time and the job recruiter's time as well.
Good example of that, Rob, is I was having a meeting with someone this week. They tend to recruit into the security industry, and they said that people with a background in policing, certain security roles or whatever, they tend to do well in the security industry, but they may struggle to bring across or get across the point of their business and sort of private sector acumen, and that's something that's a gap potentially. So something that needs bridging, because it's okay to say I can do security, I've done this, I've done that, but there'll be an element of what the private sector is like. So there's something there to be bridged as well, and that can be done through development, shadowing, going and meeting people. It doesn't mean that when we leave a job, we've got everything we need ready for the next one. There's still a bit of work to do.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And anyway, as I've said there, if you get such a job, if you somehow get a job that either you haven't got the skills or experience for, maybe you maybe, as I said, over-egged a little bit what you can do, how long do you think it will last? We don't want a CV that's got every 6 months a new job on it, because that's a problem in itself. And a recruiter might go through 3 months of pain to fill a position. They're not going to fill a position thinking that someone's only here for the next 6 months. So you need to put across the fact that, this is the job for you, why you've got, why you're interested, why you can do it, and it's for the long term, and that needs to be your approach to it, really.
Yeah, I agree, Mark. And sometimes it's worth even mentioning, I want this for a minimum of 5 years, or I want to progress in the organisation. I've set myself a 10 or 15-year work span for this, and which most of us probably can do. So it's worth getting words like that in there, just to kind of prove the point about this isn't a 6-month stopgap.
Exactly. And my last point there, you can always learn new skills, but it's more difficult to do something, to learn to enjoy it if you don't already. So skills, especially if you've not left yet and you've got a bit of time on your side, skills and gaps in experience are things you can cover off. So it really is important to try and enjoy the job, and the rest is history then. One of the recruiters I spoke to, had a chat with, said that he would rather hire someone with the right positive attitude and who came across well in the interview, but maybe had some skills gaps, than someone who had the perfect CV but had the wrong attitude. He said, because you can't really train
Yeah,
attitude, but you can train skills. So I thought that was a good point.
yeah, I agree with you, Mark. And yeah, there's no doubt about it. You just definitely need to have those skill sets in there.
Okay. So if you look back over your career and reflect on the times you enjoyed, that might help you identify the sort of things that you like doing. We've all got memories. We've all got a career history. We can think of things we like doing. Rob just said about the training, and look, he's ended up doing that in his next career. So that's an important opportunity to reflect and find out what we like and what we don't like so much. Maybe, when and where did you excel? What were the highlights in your career, and what made those highlights? Because maybe that can be linked to a new career going forwards. If it's something you found you were really good at, let's say, for example, you had to deal with a few families and some issues, and you were very supportive, and they could lean on you, and you came across really well. Maybe there's something there for coaching or counselling, that you wouldn't have even considered. So give it some thought as to what you've done in the past and what really worked.
Yeah, advice that I would give in terms of where did you excel, Mark? I think it's worth speaking to a boss or a colleague that you've maybe come through your career with, and just ask them, where did you excel? What were you good at? As much as you might think you were maybe not good at something, they will tell you, well, actually, you were good at this, you were good at that, you were good at all sorts of other different things. And take some notes down, and actually that's the kind of stuff you need to focus on for taking your career forward after policing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just about what you see, is it? Your perception. There's lots of other people that have seen you in action, and where you excel, you might have forgotten, but you could say to somebody, what's the key things you remember about me? What was I really good at?
Yeah.
And hearing it from somebody else can be quite reinforcing.
Yeah, and this one more point, Mark, for me is again, I was one of those sad people. I kept all of my annual staff reports, so there might be some good nuggets of information on your annual staff reports where a boss has actually, or even a second line manager, actually made a particular point about something that you did well.
Absolutely, yeah. If you have got records, then just take the time to look through it. And this is why that you can't leave on a Friday and do something else on a Monday, and even 1 month isn't enough. We can't stress enough that if you've got 18 months to sort of lead up to this, then you should really be using as much of that as possible.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree.
So the next point then is, when and where did you come unstuck or find that you have to wing it? And that's where you need to think about steering clear of things, or things that you maybe did but didn't enjoy, or felt like you were just about getting by. Interestingly, the CIPD, the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, they did a survey, and 80% of people said that they worry at work that they're going to get found out at some point. So not everybody is confident in the work they do, and some people have to wing it occasionally. But what we want to do is not have you winging it all the time. So, try and steer clear of things that you find that you're coming home thinking, how did I get away with that today? Because that's not a good feeling to have. So let's get you doing things that you are good at and have got, competence with, or you can train up.
Yeah, no, I agree there, Mark. Again, that's almost back to my story about IT people thinking, I've got security backgrounds, I'm sure I can do some IT infrastructure stuff. And actually, I've delivered IT training as an example. I wasn't overly comfortable with it. Was I winging it? Possibly. Did I get away with it? Yes, I did. Was I comfortable though? No, I wasn't. And there is that thing about being comfortable at doing what you're doing, and that particular bit of training, no, I wasn't.
I bet after you did the first one, though, you were pretty okay doing it again and again, were you?
Yeah.
Uncertainty.
Yeah, exactly. Once you're doing it, it's fine, but it's that first couple, it's that initial step into the unknown that does cause a little bit of stress, no doubt.
Okay, okay, okay. And finally, then on this screen, think about what gave you the most satisfaction. What did you do that you thought, oh, I love doing that? Because if we can get more of that in your future career, you've nailed it. You'll never look back.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that is back to the thing about what am I good at? What skills am I good at? What can I transfer across? That skills transferability question.
Okay, so moving on. Thinking about a bit wider here and the things that you do and you're sort of good at, maybe there's a hobby or an outside interest that you've got which could lead to paid employment. Some people do things that they sort of do part-time. We've met people who like baking. I met a lady who's leaving the police in about a year's time, and she really enjoys baking, and her dream is to set up a baking company where she makes cakes and things and sells them to bakeries. So she does all that from her home, and she's practicing now and getting to the point where in a year's time she'll be ready to sell them. So there's lots of homework she's got to do, but she said it'd be my dream to leave the police and
Yeah.
actually take my hobby forward as a business. So maybe there's things that you've done, and there's a few things on the list there, or enjoy doing, that actually could be a moneymaker for you. It could be your next career.
It's quite incredible, Mark, that as you know, we've been speaking to quite a few people in the last few months, and you know, authors of crime thrillers. You know, we've had hypnotherapists, and it's just mind-boggling some of the things that ex-cops get up to in terms of future employment. So, yeah, nothing's unachievable, and it really is a case of if it's something you like doing as a hobby, then even better.
Yeah, exactly. And we have mentioned the word security a few times already. And, I don't want to push the point that we're saying everybody leaves the police to join security. I think on the opposite side of that, we actually think that it tends to be a default position for people to go to any type of security type role if there's nothing else that either jumps out of them or they want to do or feel confident with. But there's just so much out there, and we're meeting people every day who've done different things, and only a fraction of them have gone down the security route. You've just mentioned hypnotherapy. Who would have thought that a police officer would leave to become a hypnotherapist? But the world is your oyster. There's nothing to stop you learning, training, getting skills and doing exactly what you want to do. This is that one time when you get to make a big decision on what you're going to do.
Yeah, totally agree there, Mark.
So voluntary work, whether you've done any already or maybe consider it in the future, that can open quite a few doors for you as well. Because voluntary work is obviously you giving up your time for free. So it's an opportunity for you to do something and get skills and experience while doing it, or meeting people and networking in those areas. And all of a sudden, when paid jobs come up in that sort of field, it might be something then that you can add to your CV and give yourself an opportunity to go down that route. To get a voluntary job requires less skills and experience and sort of a threshold of achievement than maybe a paid job, because quite often people are grateful to have you as a volunteer. What do you know about voluntary work, Rob? You got
I was going to say, Mark, I'll give you an example of how it didn't work for me, and it's really is a case of doing your homework first. And what happened to me was I lived near Newbury, and I went down to the Newbury kind of voluntary voluntary services office, and they first of all they'd emailed me lots of stuff, and I thought, well, I know what I want to do. I actually want to go and do some business stuff at the college. That was what I had in my head. So I went down, and the problem is, this is probably my bit of advice to everybody, make sure you know what it is that you want to do in the voluntary sector first, because they are very happy to see you come through the door, sit down and talk to you, and the next minute, about an hour later, I had about 20 or 30 different voluntary jobs churning out of a printing machine and put into my hand. And then I was asked by the guy I was speaking to, can you go and have a look and tell us which ones of these you want to do? So I went in there with a mindset of I want to do some business stuff with the college. And because that wasn't available, they then literally threw all this stuff at me and inundated me with it to the extent where I thought, that's just going to sit in a pile on a shelf, and I never went back again. So my advice is make sure you know exactly what it is you want to do. Do your research first. Have it in your mind what it is that you want to do, and just be careful because they are so happy that you walk through the door and ask to be a volunteer that they'll just throw everything at you and inundate you and actually bombard you, and then your mind will be juggled about exactly what it is that you want to do.
Some great advice there, and it reminds me of two experiences I've had of volunteering. I did a year of chairman of Crime Stoppers in Suffolk, and I really enjoyed that. And I got out and about to meet a lot of people. I set up a team. Ended up doing a radio interview on the from my office at home, 7 o'clock in the morning in my dressing gown. Of course, nobody can see what you look like, and that was on BBC Radio Suffolk, talking about crime stats. And that was a thoroughly good year, and enjoyed that. But on the flip side, where I live in Basingstoke, there was a chance to do some basic skills teaching for people who haven't got a job, who are job seeking. So I go in there, and I was asked to shadow and spend a week learning how to do things. First day in there, somebody didn't turn up, and I was chucked straight into the classroom in front of a group.
Wow.
And all they wanted to do was listen to their iPods and play music and play games and have some fun. And it was just like completely different to what I expected and what was sold to me. So you really need to do your homework, because doing voluntary work is as demanding as doing a normal job. The expectations on you and the standards are as high. It just might be slightly easier to get your foot in the door because they're welcoming you with open arms, as Rob said.
Yeah, definitely.
So, is there a dream job out there for you that requires some training and personal development? And that's the key. My dream job would have been an airline pilot, but when I realised that, I was far too old for it, and that's just too much retraining. But to be realistic, there's things that you could do that really change direction for you. And if there's something that's a real dream, then you probably have the motivation to see it through. And you might have dreamt about it while you're in the police, but not maybe had the gumption or the sort of the right setup or the terms in your career to actually leave and do that. But if you're leaving anyway, you really could follow your dream and maybe have some thoughts as to what that might be. I mean, with you, Rob, because you really enjoyed training, coming out and doing training almost sounds like the dream job anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, it is my dream job now. Certainly, professional footballer is gone now, so that's
yeah, and me.
Yeah, I was going to say the other thing for me, Mark. Again, as you and I had a discussion today, I was talking to a lady that was my mentor and coach for quite a few years, and we talked about what is it that you need in terms of to take forward to a new career, and it's, keywords again were attitude. You have to have the right attitude and the right approach. You have to have self-confidence. You have to believe in yourself. Might I do it? Could I do it? Should I do it? Get rid of those kind of maybe words and actually put I can do it, and go ahead and do it. You'll never know unless you put the big effort in. So this thing about attitude, self-confidence, self-belief, just put those words in your mindset and take it forward. I'm sure that all of our listeners will be able to take forward and move to the next career that they want to do.
That's a great point, actually. There's someone famous once said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And that's because it's your mindset. If you think you can do it, you've got a good chance of doing it. If you think you can't do it, you really haven't got much chance of achieving it. And sometimes you might need to get some help for that. You have things like personal coaches, mentors. There's people out there who've maybe been where you are and can give you some pointers and direction. I mean, there's lots of resources growing by the week on our Leaving the Police website. And it's just about talking to people who've been there where you've been and, tapping into their experience rather than wasting your time and perhaps money making mistakes that they've already made. Learn from them, learn from us. That's why we want to do this, because we want people to, not make the same mistakes, start positively and make it happen for yourself.
Yeah, I agree with them out as well.
Okay, so what we're saying is don't rush into the first thing that you see out of sheer desperation. Now, what causes sheer desperation is a lack of time. It's that finish on a Friday, have no job on a Monday syndrome. And that's only going to happen if you don't plan and if you become desperate. You're going to take that £7 an hour job at the local Sainsbury's or whatever. Not knocking anyone who does that, because if you've got a good pension and you don't want the hassle, you might be happy with that. But if you want more, then you need to plan. You need to take the time.
As I say, like, most cops and police staff, in the main, we know when we're going to be leaving, or we've got at least probably 2 or 3 months' notice. And I can only think of one instance where perhaps you don't have that notice, and that's almost like an instantaneous sacking, which luckily happens very few and far between. But in the main, we kind of have some kind of timeline of knowing when we're going to be moving on. So there's no real excuse. There shouldn't be that Friday feeling, and then Monday I've got to take the first thing that comes along.
Yeah, you're right, and I've even known one or two police officers who have had that instant sacking, and what they've done is they've found what they would perhaps call a lesser paid job to tide themselves over, and they've rebuilt themselves. And after a few months or a few years, no one's really asking the ins and outs of why they left the police. Things have moved on because your new career is your next career. So, you know, all is not lost if you find that for whatever has happened at work, you find yourself with a short notice termination. You know, I'm happy to talk to anyone in the margins about that. You know, get in touch, because we know people that have been in your situation, and we can maybe talk to you about coming out the other side.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've said it already, but changing jobs regularly does not make good reading on a CV. You know, there has to be good reason for that. And if you said you were a contractor, then that's fine, because contractors do have short-term contracts and change jobs regularly. And that's something you quite, you know, potentially end up doing. But career jobs, every 3 years probably is about the minimum you want to be jumping around before it starts ringing alarm bells with people, because they won't see the point of investing in you and taking you on and going through the process of inducting you into a new job if you're going to have your sights somewhere else. And yesterday I was talking to a security recruiter, and he said that it's obvious sometimes when people come in that they're just using us as a stepping stone, and we now managed to spot that in the interview. And also, it's better to show ambition, as Rob said a few minutes ago. Show ambition that you actually want to get on in the organisation and are committed.
Yeah, again, Mark, can't disagree with anything that you're saying. Then it really is important that CV reads properly as well. It is about skill sets. It is about doing words. It is about what you've achieved and what you can achieve, rather than, like you say, about 10, 20 jobs on there from different employees. That begs the question: why can't you hold down the job for very long?
Yeah, and finally, on this point, if you end up hating your job, this new job, you're just gonna think back to the good old days and think of all the good days in the police that you miss and that are behind you now that you can't go back to. Start feeling sorry for yourself, and it's a downward spiral from there. So we can't push it, you know, enough really, that, you know, it's important to get a job that you're going to enjoy and that you can stick at. So make that decision wisely, and the best way of doing that is to give yourself the time. Don't get complacent that you've got 6 months and it's okay, it'll all be fine. The best outcomes are the ones that people have put the planning and the effort into. And there's a lot of work involved, and there's a lot of people you can talk to. Don't just let the date creep up on you. You know, by all means, as one of the people we spoke to said, have a holiday, have a break when you finish. Take 2 weeks to disengage from one job and start the next part of your life, and then you'll be refreshed as well.
Yeah, interesting point there, Mark, about pining for your own career. And again, a few conversations I've had with some ex police officers is they pine actually for the camaraderie that they used to have, and when they're sat at home day in day out, you know, looking for this next opportunity, there is that thing about team, and we've all been part of a team before, and you miss that camaraderie. So when you're making your new career choice, and I'll give the example of trainers as a good example. A lot of trainers sit in the house and wait for the next job coming in, and you're doing lots of stuff on your own, which is unusual when you've been in a team for 30 years or whatever it's been. So it's just something about career choice. If you like being in a team, make sure you pick a career that you're going to be back in a team again, and not something where you are actually going to go days and days and not see many people at all.
That's a good, really good point. And somebody I was working with, probably most of this year on and off, done some work with a large company. And one of the guys who was the lead trainer, he was basically a contractor, like I was doing the work as a contractor. So he was getting paid a daily rate, and they offered him a full-time position. And he said, it'll be less money than I'm getting paid as a daily rate. He said, but I want to go back to feeling part of something. I want to go back to feeling part of a big organization and a big team, and that every day I've got people to go in, and then my colleagues. And I thought that was interesting, because he was going to take less money, and it wasn't about security because he had a pension, you know, financial security, but it was about feeling part of something. So
Yeah.
if you need to feel part of a team and a group, consider that as well when you're making your choices. So good point there, Rob, because we're both members of a Facebook group, an ex-police Facebook group, and quite a lot of people say they don't always miss the job, but they miss the people and the camaraderie, as you've just said, Rob.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a cycle here. Think about what you're going to do, reflect on the consequences potentially, make a decision, do something about it, because the worst thing you can do is have ideas, have dreams, and not actually do anything, start procrastinating or whatever.
Yeah.
Follow them through, and then you can go through this reflection cycle. And this is more or less what we do in training, to get people to think about things.
Yeah. And it is that reflection piece as well, Mark, really thinking about the consequences of your actions, whatever those actions might be. Really have a think about. It's actually enjoying that reflection up with close family as well, because your decision about what you do next, really you should be involving those that are nearest and dearest to you as well.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to come on to that shortly. So we'll move on to where to find suitable roles now. There's lots of places out there where you can get a job, and we've listed a few of our ideas and experiences on here. The first one is the online job centre. Now, we put that at the top. You'll probably find that that's the place where it's got the least pay rates, the least skills. So if you find yourself in a position of desperation and you just need some money to come in, that's probably the place to go to tide you over. And, we said about not changing jobs too much, but even having money coming in is the bottom line. So that's probably the easiest place to find some paid work for yourself to start with.
Yeah.
Bespoke recruitment agencies. Now, we use the word bespoke because what we mean is they specialize in people who leave in the police. So the one we've put down there is Red Snapper, because that's basically why they exist. They have companies approach them looking for the skills and experiences of ex-police officers. So it's worth probably getting in touch with them. So it's a whole nother subject, but it's a good place to start because their specialization is finding placements for people like yourself.
Yeah, I was going to say about those that are subscribers to Police Oracle will know this anyway, but Police Oracle show the job vacancies via Red Snapper as well.
Yeah, exactly. And members of the Leaving the Police website will get job alerts, and some of those will come from Red Snapper as well. So there's plenty of scope to have jobs land in your email at the end of the day. So get yourself involved with recruitment agencies, because the work or the potential work comes to you. And the reason being is that those agencies only get paid when they fill vacancies. So it's in their interest to match people up. The next one then is just general recruitment agencies. So not police specific, but they're on the high street. They're on Google. They're in the phone book. They're all over the place. They're online, and you can register with them. Tell them what your needs are. Share your CV with them, your skills, and they will hopefully start to match you with jobs.
So just while we're on the subject, it's crucial that the CV is a good CV. I know we've got our own CV services, but it really is crucial that whichever agency you use, the CV has to be up to date and identify those skills that you have.
Yeah, you're right. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I suppose it's a good thing, we haven't got a lot of experience when we're in the police of writing CVs, because we probably didn't need to do one to join, and we probably haven't had to do one whilst we were in. So
Exactly.
that's a whole another subject about how to build a CV and how to sort of make yourself stand out, because most of them now are read by computers. They'll do this first sift, so it's about keywords and stuff. But that's a whole nother subject, and get in touch with us if you need any help with your CVs. The next potential place to find jobs is vacancy lists on an organization's website. So you need to just decide what type of organization you'd work for or be interested in working for, and go to their website and see what jobs they've got. So if there's a particular organization that you like and you think, yeah, I'd like to work for them, then just go on their website and see what's available. And it's quite straightforward, really. You can usually apply online. You can do a direct approach to an organization if they haven't got a particular job that they're advertising, but there's roles in that organization that you're interested in. Wouldn't hurt you to send a covering letter with your CV And the worst that can happen is they can say to you, we haven't got any vacancies in that area at the moment. And they'll probably put your details on file. And that might save them some trouble, because if somebody does leave and there's a vacancy, instead of the 3-month recruitment process, they might look at your CV and think, oh, I'll give you a call and bring you in for an interview. And you've sort of pushed yourself to the front of the pile then, and saves them going through a process where someone's given them 28 days notice and then they've left, and it's taken 3 months to replace them. So there's no handover in the actual job. So bringing someone in within a couple of weeks can make all the difference. So don't think that you shouldn't write to organizations if there's jobs that you're interested in. Online, there's lots of online places to search for jobs. Indeed.co.uk is one of the best ones, and you can type so much in the search box. You can really narrow things down, salary-wise, distance from home, the keywords in the jobs, and they will send you job alerts as well. And we've got stuff linked in with them for our job alert service. So there's plenty of opportunity there to have jobs land in your email box on a weekly basis.
Mark, could I start a little bit to the Indeed one in particular? It's just that if you've got your CV lodged with them and your details lodged with, just make sure every couple of months that you keep those updated. You might, for instance, have done some new training and gained a new skill set or a qualification, a skill set, which wasn't there 2 months ago, and actually it's pretty crucial because somebody's looking for that skill set now. So just make sure that your personal details, professional details are kept up to date as much as possible on any of these things that you do.
Absolutely. And I've just put up the LinkedIn there, and we're both on LinkedIn, and we both use it when we need to. And 92% of recruiters look for people for jobs on LinkedIn. So you may not have been on LinkedIn because you've been in the police and it's not something you've ever thought you needed to do. But our advice is to get yourself on LinkedIn, but not just do it properly. It's about how you set your profile up, how you get yourself organized. So if you need to speak to us about that, get in touch, because there's a right way and a wrong way to do LinkedIn. And there's books you can buy, there's stuff you can find out on Google, but do take the time to do a proper LinkedIn profile. In actual fact, it may go against you if when you submit your CV and hoping for an interview, the chances are they'll look you up on LinkedIn, and if you're not on there, that might go against you, because that's where they expect to see people these days.
Yeah, I agree there.
Networking and word of mouth, that's always a good way of finding a job. Knowing someone who knows someone who needs a job. We've all got friends, we all know people, and we can find work through word of mouth at the end of the day. And both Rob and I have found contracts and work just by talking to people, so it does work. You can go to recruitment fairs, conventions, exhibitions. Just look out on Google for those types of things, get them in your diary. They're usually free to attend because the exhibitors are paying to be there. So, it can't hurt you. If there's a particular field you want to get into, then find out where they exhibit, where they convene, where they recruit, and go along and introduce yourself and speak to people.
I was going to say, Mike, just to add to that, there's one in particular that's up top of my head is if you're security cleared, which I know a lot of police officers and civilian staff are, there's actually a specific security cleared recruiters fair. It's over a 2-day period. Can't remember when in the year it is, but it's an annual event.
That's right, and training as well. There's a few training annual events. So usually each little industry has got its own thing. So check out the field that you want to go into and see what's out there. Facebook is another place, because you get Facebook groups, and we've all got friends on Facebook if we're on it, and people know people. So just look out for things. You never know. It's not prolific, but it might be a way to find a way into work again.
Just one caveat, Mark, for Facebook. Sometimes people put things on Facebook which they think only their friends are seeing, and actually others may take offense to what might be on there. So just be careful that if you've got stuff on Facebook, that you'd be happy of any potential employer being privy to that information, or photograph, for instance, in particular. It's some of the what was a good thing at a party might not be such a good thing when a potential employer sees it.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And the potential employer will check your Facebook page out. So one thing to do maybe is check your privacy settings and make sure only your friends can see it all. Far too many people have got everything public, and it's probably best, because we all have a moment where we put some stuff on Facebook, and or see us in a slightly state after a night out, whatever. And the best way of doing that is just keeping it close to your friends. So the other thing there is friends and former colleagues referral. We all know people who've left the police before us. What are they doing? What are they up to? Are they successful? Have they got jobs in organisations that obviously people, if that's good enough for ex-police, then is it something you're interested in? So you can see quite a long list of things there. One more that I'm going to add is the Leaving the Police Job Alert Service, which is our job alert service that our members can get. And that's where you get a weekly email about potential jobs sent straight to your inbox. So there's 10 or 12 things there that you can do to look for suitable roles. It's not just about typing into Google. It's actually quite a lot of things to be proactive there.
Yeah, a lot.
And all of that requires a bit of research. So before you actually apply for a particular role, you need to find out about the organisation, its policies, ethics, ethos, its fit, because you don't want to work for an organisation that you don't like. Maybe consider where you'll be based. Does that fit with your needs? If you're outside of London and the job is in London and you've got a 1 or 2 hour commute in each direction each day, it might be a great paid job, but when you get used to the money, you'll realise that working a 12-hour day 5 days a week is maybe not what you really signed up for. So
I was going to add in there, don't forget to factor in the travel cost as well as the time.
Yeah, because few organisations will pay for that, so you'll be paying for yourself to get in. And from where we are in North Hampshire, it's about £10,000 a year to get a return ticket to London. So you need to factor that in as well. So good point there, Rob. What's the salary package involved? You need to think about everything really, not just the amount of money, but what is it you're going to be earning and the potential progression and stuff like that. So give it some thought. Who do you know who works for the organisation already? So you can get some inside information, find out what it's like to work for them. I've got some friends in some jobs and they said, they get their pound of flesh out of you. Well, that's not unexpected in the private sector, but you need to be wary of what you're getting into. Go on, Rob.
This is where LinkedIn works as well. So on LinkedIn, you can do a company search. You can find out how many of your second or third links work at that location. Just drop them a message. Ask them, what's the camaraderie like at that particular office or that particular part of the business?
Exactly, because if everyone's happy there, then there's a good chance you'll be happy there, and vice versa. What can you find out about the department and the team that you're actually going to be working for if you get the job? But that helps as well, and it doesn't take that much to do some sort of digging to find out some information. Who's likely to be your line manager? What can you find out about them? At the end of the day, the person doing the interview is more than likely to be your line manager, because people tend to do the interview for the people that they're going to manage. So find out about who's going to do the interview and do some research. You can look them up on LinkedIn, Google, depends on how well known they are, but it helps to sort of see if you can align yourself with them, or if they're your cup of tea really. It's all about doing your homework so that when you get there, there's no surprises. If you're interested in progression, is there actually a clear path? There's no point going into a job where there's no upwards progression, maybe a little sideways progression, and after a year or two you're fed up, because you're back to square one then. So it's important that you establish certain things ahead of time.
I was going to say, Mark, I always think that's a really good thing to add in at the end of any interview anyway, when they say, have you got any questions for us? And that would be a really good question. What are the opportunities for progression over the next 3 to 5 years? Doesn't necessarily mean promotion. Progression, as in doing other jobs, might be the progression we're thinking about.
Exactly, yeah. Sideways or upwards, it can still make things interesting for you. What sort of history does the organisation have? So it's about you doing some research to find out what's gone before. It's handy to know that because it helps you explain things during the interview process and obviously when you land the job. How well is the organisation doing and what sort of future does it have? Every day there's organisations in the news that are at risk. You don't really want to be putting all your eggs in one basket, going into a job, landing the job and find out they're having redundancies a few months later. Again, it's that back to square one.
I was going to say, Mark, I went for an interview with a a large-scale organisation a couple of years ago, and one of the things I did was a share price check on them. And the share price had been dropping for the last 2 or 3 years up until that time of my interview with them. So that wasn't a good sign for me. So luckily and gladly, I didn't get the role.
Yeah, that's a good tip. There's so much you can do, isn't there, that people don't always think about. And like you say, if the share price is going down and down and down, unless there's some clear positive picture around the corner, then, you know, you're probably going to go in there and there's going to be a lot of doom and gloom around you. And do you really want that?
Yeah.
Do your values and the organization values align? And this is important. If you have some strong beliefs in certain things, it's important that, you know, they're aligned with the organization. Otherwise, that conflict could just cause you some grief.
I was going to say, Mark, the big thing that every organisation talks about now is this corporate social responsibility. You know, most organisations have got a policy on it, but it aligns to policing as well. I mean, we talk about personal values and organisational values in our decision-making process in the policing world, but we should be using that same decision model for when we're going to go and work for another organisation. You know, spin the wheel again and have a look and see, do those values and your values align, or even your previous organisation's values align.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing worse than finding there's just no fit, because again, you'll be looking at another job or how to get out of that, which isn't what you want. And final point there, have a think about where you see yourself in 5 years' time. It doesn't matter how old you are, how far away you are from putting your feet up on the beach. 5 years' time, are you in a position with this job to be happy in 5 years' time, to make some progression, to have got what you want to achieve? Maybe if the salary is just about what you need now, you've got a chance to progress that. You know, if you can see yourself in a positive light in 5 years' time, then, you know, this could be the job for you. But if 5 years from now it looks like it could be doom and gloom, then is it worth getting into? Because these decisions are big decisions.
Yeah, agreed.
The next thing to move on to then is the money thing, really, and consider what you're really worth. See, if you leave the police with a pension before you receive it, you still need to work out what you need to earn each month. So take away your tax, you know, your net pay is what's left. Whether you've got a pension or not, you'll have an idea of what you need to get by on. And that's basically your starting point. Anything less than that isn't going to cut it. You're just going to find that you're having less and less to live on each month. You haven't got the money for the holidays, the car upgrades, the car servicing, the Christmas presents. So if you're going to take a job which you end up having less than you need to get by on, it's just throwing up trouble. Even if you think that's giving you a job that's more chance of getting it than some other job, don't sell yourself short, because there's jobs out there for you, and it's just a case of doing your planning and doing your homework. And the planning is the thing to do. I've said it much of the time now through this webinar. Plan early and avoid that feeling of desperation.
Yeah, I agree with that, Mark. And I go back to my thing about decision making. Part of that decision making process is about how much do I need to earn, and what does that actually look like after you've taken all the deductions off and added to it. If you have got a pension, and add it to that pension, and or any other income that's coming into your household.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just about you. If you're a team, you've got a partner, husband, wife, or whatever. You know, there's a bigger picture here. So consider them all the way through this as well, and what your contribution needs to be. On the screen there, I've just put up the salarycalculator.co.uk. It's a great little tool for finding out what the net pay is when you type in what the salary is. So if you get a job for 40k, say, type that in and it will tell you what the current take-home pay of that will be. And you can add in your pension numbers in there, so it'll adjust all the tax for you, and it will give you your new take-home pay with your pension. So, you know, if you've got a really high-paid job and a good pension, you're going to be paying a lot of tax unless you decide to work for yourself as a contractor, and the tax position changes slightly there. And we're going to do, that's another subject for another webinar. But it's all things to consider, because at the end of the day, we all go to work mainly for money, because we've got bills to pay.
Yeah. I'll say, Mark, just one question. You're obviously more familiar with that than I am. I'm assuming the calculator takes into consideration national insurance contributions as well, yeah?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's got a list of potential deductions, and you can even put things like student loan on there. So if you borrowed money to do studying, that can all be factored in. Childcare vouchers. So it's a really good tool
Oh
for
wow, that's
finding
good.
out what the bottom line is. What with all these bits of information, what's your take-home pay going to be like after all the deductions and your pension and the tax? So, and it's up
Okay,
to date as well. The tax numbers change every year, and it's updated with those. So a really good tool that recommend people have a look at.
great.
So some considerations then. It's about the whole package. It's not just about the money. And the reason is you may get a performance bonus. Do a really good job, be incentivized, they'll give you more money. You might get a car allowance, which could be a percentage of your salary. Now, we all know it costs a lot of money to run cars. Somebody I know, he's an accountant, and they've made him a partner. And his car allowance is basically he gets the car, he gets all expenses paid for with the car. He can even use the car himself and get the fuel paid for by the company when he's driving around the country for his family. So there's a lot you can do in terms of think of the bigger picture than just what the top line salary figure is.
Just on car allowance, Mark. Again, something which I would never have thought of before, other than talking to again ex police colleagues who do this now, is about leasing a car rather than buying a new car. So they lease them over a 2 year, 3 year period, and actually it's because you've got an allowance. The allowance covers it all. So there's a quid pro quo there.
Yeah, exactly. And if people have got their own business, then they can put that through the company as an expense. And without going into the detail here, an accountant will advise you best on that. But things here aren't just all about the top salary figure. There's so much more to consider, and that brings us on to the flexible mobile working. If a company that you're going to work with is open to that, then it can make a difference. Not just how you feel. If you maybe work from home on a Friday or something, or you've got less commuting to do because you can do some working from home, or a satellite office. If you've got children and childcare costs, it all makes a difference, and all those things can impact on the amount of money that you earn. One thing here to consider is that you might be pleased to get away from shift work if you've been doing shift work lately, or at some point you will have done, but maybe this new job doesn't have that, and that could be a factor that makes it worthwhile for you.
Yeah.
Some organizations will fund your training and development support. I've been delivering some courses where people on my course have only been in the job in the organization for 1 week. So a week into the job and they're already being invested into, and supported. So, they were feeling great. I'm on a course in my second week basically, and that was their attitude. And I think, well, this is a great company to work for. So that's something to consider as well, if they'll support your training and development. You might get access to private healthcare, which for those of us that are getting older by the day and, things are starting to go wrong, then that can all make quite a difference to us.
Yeah, definitely.
Annual leave allowance. It might be a decent amount. It might be more than you're used to. It can make all the difference. You'll maybe get a good terms of a pension. So another pension, basically, if you've already got one. And it all adds up. It's something to consider, because some organizations will match your pension and what you put in, and it's another way of saving on tax. Sick pay is an interesting one, because in the police we had pretty decent sick pay terms, but some organizations don't have that. So that's something you might want to consider, especially as if you're in the bracket of being 50 plus, where you might tend to maybe get a few more coughs and colds and open to some ailments. Then having the knowledge that you can actually be off sick and not worry about the money coming in can make all the difference. But the perfect package, it rarely exists, so you might need to consider to be able to compromise. Robin Wright there, the actress, she was in House of Cards, and her attitude is she wants the whole package. She wants basically perfection, and that's probably why she admits that she doesn't get a lot of roles to do. If you want too much, you may end up with nothing. So have a look at the list and decide what's important for you, and that's something to consider, because you can actually negotiate the terms of your job. If they want you and they like the sound of you and they think, yes, we want to give you the job, you can negotiate certain parts of that. Don't just take what's being put on the table. You don't have to necessarily.
Yeah, it's a good point about the negotiation thing, which we're probably not used to doing that as ex-police as well.
Yeah, we need to lose some old habits going forward, and that's definitely one of them. Because you need to forget what your salary was in the police. It rarely equates across, and it's about now working out what you need and what you'd like. So you've got your basic need, and then maybe add on to that what you would like, what pays for the nice holidays, what pays for the nice cars, maybe tuition and stuff like that. So there's a bit extra needed here, so you have to consider that. Think about what your skills, experience and qualifications are and what that makes you suitable for. Again, you see the word enjoy there. That's what we want. And find out what the going rate is for that type of work, because that can make all the difference. Always aim high. Make sure you get at least what you're worth, because at the end of the day, if you go to work and everybody else is earning more doing the same job because you didn't fight for yourself when negotiating the salary, how happy is that going to keep you? And you have to go back then and renegotiate. So don't try and sell yourself short just to get the job, because the way it works is that if people think you're the person for the job, then they want you just as much as you want the job.
It reminds me, Mark, you and I used to work in another organisation which was not policing, and we had people leaving, and it wasn't because of the money. It was all about the terms and conditions. So the point about terms and conditions is crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that, Rob. And if you've got a skills or learning gap, consider how you can meet your development needs before you actually leave the police. Because you're getting a salary now, you're in the police, you can use some of that money and the time available to develop. And there's maybe courses you can go on in the job, speak to your line manager, find out what you can actually do that will help you going forward. This is why you need to do your planning early, because you need to find out what it is you can do to fill those gaps before you leave. If you have to do a full-time course or a part-time course when you leave, you're not going to be bringing any money in for that. But whatever you do, don't think you're worthless, and don't think that you've just got a few skills. The majority of ex-police are successful, and we know loads of them. And even those that don't think they're successful, they usually turn a corner in the end and find out how to step up from the job they started in afterwards to something they really want and enjoy. So it's not the end of the day. It's just like the beginning of a new part of your life. Other things to consider: timescales. I think we've pushed this quite a lot now about planning, giving yourself time to do the research, do it whilst getting paid. The family side of things, because it's not just about you, as I said. You need to talk to your family and involve them in the decision-making process. When I left 5-6 years ago, I had a discussion about what I was going to do and shared it with my family and got all the support I needed, because there's nothing worse than taking a big decision, and if it doesn't go well straight away, having somebody in your family saying "I told you so," or "I didn't agree to that," or giving you grief. So get your family on board, because if it means traveling or being away from home or things that are different than before, you need their buy-in really beforehand.
Yeah, agreed.
Think about your age and your health. One goes in hand with the other. I just hit 45 the other day, and my knee aches now from playing football when I was young, and apparently I've just had an x-ray and I've got a bit of arthritis in my left knee. So things don't get better, but there's things you can do. You can pick a job that's going to match your sort of health requirements. I do a fair bit of driving, so what I did is I got rid of my manual car and bought an automatic, so my left leg doesn't have to go up and down on the clutch all the time. You can make adjustments, but be realistic about the type of job you're going for. If you've got any sort of health conditions or concerns or anything that's progressive that's going to make things difficult for you.
Yeah.
Lifestyle. You need to consider what lifestyle you actually want, because if you don't end up being able to deliver that for yourself, then it's going to make you miserable potentially, because you're not going to be able to do all the things that you maybe used to do while you're in the police. And we want you to be happier and better when you come out the other side.
Yeah.
You need to be realistic about your motivation and your levels of drive and determination. See, if the next job that you've got is really challenging and you're not up for that challenge, you're just going through the motions, and that's going to make it hard work. And also, if you really are ambitious, then if you take on a mundane job, you're not going to be very happy in it for very long, because you're going to want more. So that's basically our webinar. So what we're saying to you now is good luck for the rest of your life with your career. You can look us up on leavingthepolice.co.uk, and every week we're putting on new resources in the members area. So obviously we've got the resources to help you, because Rob and I and other people in the organisation, other members who you can tap into in the Facebook group, they've got experience as well. A lot of them have left the job or leaving the job, and they can share their experiences with you and vice versa. Anything to add, Rob, to close?
Yeah, just to add, to be honest, Mark, I look forward to meeting new members in the Facebook group in particular, and this is all about helping ourselves to help others. This is what it's all about.